Testing,
Hi,
testing,
I'm Charles,
testing.
and you're watching The State of the Republic.
Well, this was another massive news week. The week started with Florida being slammed by Hurricane Irma. The storm resulted in massive power outages and multiple deaths, including at least 8 patients at a nursing home after the facility lost power. An investigation is now underway, while the facility claims that they called a number given out by Florida Governor Rick Scott's office 3 times for assistance. During the storm, White House social media director Dan Scavino spread a video of what he claimed was Miami International Airport, which was not Miami International Airport. Mexico reversed its offer of aid to the United States for Hurricane Harvey after Trump failed to respond at all to Mexico after they were hit by Hurricane Katia and a massive earthquake. Trump later defended himself by astonishingly claiming poor communications. In other news from America's neighbors, Canada is pushing an end-to-end anti-union right-to-freeload laws in the United States as part of NAFTA renegotiations. On the Korean peninsula, North Korea continued their provocative behavior this week as the U.S. pushed for more sanctions on the country. In executive branch news, Trump this week failed to comply with a federal court order for the release of Mar-a-Lago visitor logs, and it was also revealed that the federal government paid for hotel rooms at Mar-a-Lago, violating the domestic emoluments laws. In similar news, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin also requested a government plane for his honeymoon, because apparently literally everyone in this administration is determined to steal from taxpayers and abuse their power. It was also revealed this week that a Trump company contracted with a Chinese state-owned company for a construction project, and that Trump is continuing his business affairs despite multiple pledges previously to the contrary. At the CIA, there are increasing reports of the Trump-appointed director, Mike Pompeo, attempting to force evangelical Christianity at the agency. These reports come in addition to separate reports that the military is also having similar issues. This constitutes a disturbing erosion of the separation of church and state, and is a further example of attempted evangelical takeover of this nation and its institutions. Meanwhile, Trump's so-called Election Integrity Commission is continuing to try to suppress voters. The head of the commission, Chris Kobach, made a completely unfounded claim that illegal voters voted in New Hampshire and swung the 2016 election there. The members of the commission had even worse ideas. One member went so far as to make positive comments about Jim Crow-era poll taxes and literacy tests. The commission also considered a ludicrous proposal to force voters to go through the same background check one needs to purchase a firearm. Yes, because for Republicans, a gun is just as dangerous as your right to vote. Meanwhile, at the White House this week, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was again lying and attempting to intimidate the administration's opponents. Huckabee claimed that former FBI Director James Comey perjured himself in his testimony, and suggested that he should be prosecuted. This probably falls under the witness tampering and intimidation category. Huckabee later went on the attack against Jamel Hill, a black female ESPN reporter who referred to Trump as a white supremacist. Huckabee claimed that such a statement was a fireable offense, violating federal law prohibiting executive branch employees from influencing private employment decisions for partisan reasons. Trump also managed to piss off the United Kingdom again this week, responding to a terrorist attack in London with baseless speculation that managed to earn him a rebuke from British Prime Minister Theresa May. Trump again defended white supremacists this week, repeating his comments about bad people on both sides again. No, Donald, this is not a both sides are bad situation. Trump this week was also forced to sign a resolution from Congress explicitly condemning white supremacists. But Trump still couldn't resist watering it down for his base, tacking on a signing statement that again refused to explicitly condemn white supremacists. In other congressional news, Trump spent much of this week being unusually chummy with Democrats on the Hill. Trump invited Democratic Senators Joe Donnelly of Indiana, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, and Joe Manchin of West Virginia to the White House for a dinner to discuss the Republican tax plan. These 3 senators are considered some of the most vulnerable Democratic incumbents during the 2018 cycle, and have been closer to Trump than most of the Democratic caucus. Later in the week, Trump had dinner with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Afterwards, Pelosi and Schumer announced a deal to provide some increased border security money with no money for the wall in exchange for DACA being permanently codified into law. Trump immediately backed away from the deal without actually backing away from it, saying that there was no deal, but setting forth parameters for a possible deal that were pretty much identical to the deal that was announced by the Democratic leadership. The Republican leadership claimed that there was no deal in the works, and Trump base voters were infuriated by the possible DACA deal, with some going so far as to burn their MAGA hats. Gee, It's almost as if Trump is a con artist with no principles who only cares about himself. Now, who could have ever thought of that? Now on to healthcare. At the end of the month, the reconciliation rules for the Republican ACA repeal expire, which would force them to seek either 60 votes or to use their new reconciliation rules that they had originally planned for tax reform to use on healthcare. With that in mind, the Republicans are preparing one last-ditch effort to repeal the ACA. The new Graham-Cassidy bill is just as bad, if not worse than the previous bills, ending subsidies and exchanges for the individual market, gutting the Medicaid expansion and block granting Medicaid, and allowing companies to once again price gouge for pre-existing conditions. Democrats are sounding the alarm on the proposal and are preparing once again for a massive healthcare fight. This week also saw a substantial shift in the healthcare policy discussion long term. Senator Bernie Sanders finally introduced his Medicare for All healthcare proposal, and support for the legislation is much larger than in previous cases. The Senate bill by Sanders has attracted 16 co-sponsors, including most of the Democratic senators who are anticipated to make a presidential run in 2020, including Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Jeff Merkley. In the House, the companion Medicare for All bill by John Conyers has attracted 118 co-sponsors, a majority of the House Democratic caucus. The idea of single payer is attracting increased support from all quarters, with former Montana Senator Max Baucus even voicing some support for the idea. For those who may not remember, Baucus was the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee who blocked any efforts to even discuss single payer during the crafting of the ACA and helped shoot down the proposed public option. Democrats are also moving to protect consumers in the wake of the Equifax data breach, with Elizabeth Warren beginning an investigation and introducing a bill with 11 other Democratic senators to make credit freezes to stop fraud free of charge. This week also saw some bipartisan wins in Congress. The Senate Finance Committee reached a deal to extend the Children's Health Insurance Program for 5 years, and senators are pushing to tack on a bipartisan amendment to this year's National Defense Authorization Act that would block Trump's transgender ban on the military. Meanwhile, more and more Republicans are throwing in the towel for 2018, with this week seeing another Republican lawmaker from a swing district announce that they were not seeking re-election. Representative Dave Trott's decision not to run for re-election makes him the third such incumbent to decide not to run in the past 2 weeks. In addition, Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee is also considering retiring, possibly opening up a long-shot pickup for the Democrats in the 2018 Senate elections. In more immediate elections, the Alabama special election to fill the Senate seat vacated by Jeff Sessions is continuing on. The Republican primary runoff between incumbent appointee Luther Strange and former Alabama Supreme Court Justice Roy Moore is heating up, with both sides furiously attacking the other with backing from outside groups. Steve Bannon and Mo Brooks are backing Moore against Strange, who is backed by Senate Majority Turtle Mitch McConnell and Trump. The bruising primary is polarizing Alabama Republicans and damaging Republican chances in the general election, with Democratic nominee Doug Jones only polling 3 or 4 points behind either candidate. Jones was a staffer to Democratic Senator Howell Heflin of Alabama, who retired in 1996, and prosecuted those responsible for the 1963 bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. There could also be a special election in New Jersey, depending on the outcome of the trial of Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. Menendez is currently on trial for corruption related to gifts and favors for a friend, and Democrats are hoping that the trial drags on until after New Jersey Governor Chris Christie leaves office in order to avoid a Republican appointee. California has also been in the news this week, with several major events coming out of the Golden State. California state legislative bodies have sent a bill to Governor Brown's desk that moves up California's presidential primaries to right after the first 4 states: Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. If such a bill went into effect, it would have a substantial impact on the 2020 cycle, thanks to California's large size, population, and expensive media markets, which make campaigning in the state rather difficult. California also passed a bill requiring presidential candidates to disclose their tax returns before they can appear on the state ballot. The Russia scandal also continued to unfold in truly spectacular fashion this week. The vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, continued to push for more information out of Facebook in the wake of revelations that Russia-linked accounts bought ads to sway the election. Fake Russian accounts also organized right-wing events in the United States to boost Trump. Special Counsel Mueller has reportedly received much more information from Facebook than Congress did, as Mueller was able to obtain a warrant against Facebook for the information. Mueller has also hired another lawyer that specializes in money laundering for his investigative team. Michael Flynn is also in increasingly hot water. He is now under investigation for failure to disclose payments to promote a strange, Russia-linked for-profit scheme to build nuclear reactors for power generation in the Middle East. Flynn's son is now also under federal investigation. Steve Bannon is also now in the crosshairs of the special counsel. Bannon was revealed this week to have been present at a meeting between Kushner, Flynn, and a prince from the United Arab Emirates. The prince in question attempted to help Kushner set up a back channel with the Russian government. This week also saw revelations about how Trump responded to the appointment of the special counsel, and it is exactly how everyone thought he probably reacted. He called Jeff Sessions an idiot and demanded his resignation. However, senior officials were able to talk Trump into refusing to accept the resignation, as the firing of the Attorney General would probably make him look even worse than he already did. The Senate is now aiming to close off the possibility of Trump firing Mueller, with Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley announcing hearings for and consideration of 2 pieces of legislation that would cut off Trump's ability to fire the special counsel. Mueller also met this week with the leaders of the House Judiciary Committee, the committee where impeachment resolutions start. Just a thought. Finally, some feel-good news. Martin Shkreli, that pharma bro asshole who massively raised the price of life-saving drugs and who was convicted of securities fraud, will now be heading to jail, as his bail has been revoked by the judge in the case. In the interest of fairness, the cost of his prison necessities for him has been increased by several 100%. Well, that's the week's news.
Thank you for watching the program. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting content.